My name is Samantha Holman, and I am the chair of the Goffstown Public Library Board of Trustees. And on behalf of the board, let me just welcome you and thank you for coming this morning. I know you're all looking forward to seeing the plans and giving your feedback. And I'm really excited to hear what you think. But first, I want to give you a little bit of background about the project for those of you that maybe haven't seen this presentation before. So in October, the library will turn 113 years old. It was built in 1909 and at the time served a community of about 2,500 people. Today, Goffstown is home to more than 18,000, and frankly, one bathroom just isn't cutting it anymore. You may be familiar with some of the space constraints of the library if you've been on any of the tours, but the only expansion to date was in 1997 with the addition of the elevator and the emergency stairwell, which is the entrance that you know today. In 2009, the trustees purchased the land that you know as the lawn, or the space where we have the book sale. And in 2019, we requested approval to use $80,000 of privately held funds to fund the feasibility study and the architectural design for the addition. In 2021, again, we requested the use of trustee-held funds to hire a fundraising consultant, conduct some fundraising research, and do a geotechnical investigation of the property. You could say that we're pretty invested in this project at this point, but this is really your library. So we want to know what you think, and we want to hear what you have to say about these plans. Our job as the trustees is to balance your feedback with functionality and provide you the best return on your investment while keeping in mind real-world costs. The plans are available. You have them on the boards right here, but they're also available online at goffstownlibrary.com. If you have additional questions after the presentation, we'll be around for a few minutes, but you're welcome to reach out to us via email at trustees@goffstownlibrary.com. This is being recorded and will be available on our website and our YouTube channel. And if you would, let's welcome Jason LaCombe from SMP Architecture, and he's going to take you through the addition plans and the project itself.
Morning, everyone. Thank you, Samantha. So I'm Jason LaCombe. I'm the principal for SMP Architecture, for those of you that I haven't met. I've been working with Goffstown. Well, we were first engaged in 2019, so it's been what seems like a long road, but we have clients in libraries that we work with for many, many years. Libraries and community projects are a big part of the work that we do and what we really enjoy doing. So this has really been a treat for me. What I'd like to do is just walk through not only the design, but some of the thought process that led to it. I think the process that leads to the end solution really can be informative in how we made some decisions. So with that, let's see if this works. So going back a few years now, we always start with really looking at what I call the Google view, but it's looking at the greater community. You know, library, when we're doing a building that's in the community, how it relates to the community is really important. And that's where your library currently sits, as we all know. But when you look at the greater landscape, it's really important to think about when they laid this out in 1909, they were really thinking about what a municipal building, what an important building this is in the community when they looked at this access and the main street. So the library is really set up to be an endpoint, a destination that has that long view down the road. Obviously times have changed, but it's still an important thing to keep in mind. As we rotate the view, so I won't play with you too much, but we rotated it. Still have that long axis. You can see the library a little bit closer. And then we start looking at the solar orientation. We really want to think about how the sun moves around our buildings. Again, in 1909, they weren't necessarily thinking about those things, but now it's become a really important aspect to our design process. What really came out of looking at this, your historic building, it's important that we respect the historic, but also design a building that reflects how libraries serve communities today. And we look at it as there are things that are hands-on that we can impact and things that are hands-off. What we call the precious front, this front courtyard lawn in the front of the library, we took as a hands-off approach. We're considering an addition. We're not going to put it in front of your building. So again, respecting that access, respecting that precious front. We then, parking's important. Parking's been an issue for the library. I illegally parked at one meeting, sorry. I fess up to it. So what's the opportunities for parking? And this lawn piece of property that the library purchased many, many years ago is really the best opportunity. So what's that leave for potential for expansion? And it's really where the existing parking lot is today is really the best opportunity to look at expanding. So take it to the next step. There's our precious front, our opportunity for parking, and a place that we could put an addition. Then it's a question of, well, how big is it? Your current building has a footprint of 2,575 square feet. It's 3 stories, so it's just shy of 7,500 square feet total. Now, thinking about that, that's gross square footage. Your actual usable square footage is significantly less because of the nature of construction for this building. We were told at the beginning, before we started, that the library needed about 10,000 square feet in addition to what it is. So we just started diagrammatically, how do you put 10,000 square feet on a 7,500 square foot 3-story building? And when you start looking at just base footprints, it really starts to compromise parking opportunities. So that's a 2-story, 10,000 square feet. That's a 3-story, 3,300 square feet. You can start to see how these forms really start to overpower the historic building, just at a very diagrammatic level. So we looked at, well, what if we turned it and brought it out to the street a little bit closer and created that new entry off the parking lot, similar in fashion to what happens today, but in a little bit different scale. We really wanted to make an entrance. One of the immediate things we saw about your library is it really lacks that sense of arrival. If you go up the historic stairs, you arrive in a nice lobby. You can really see how they thought about the public interaction in that arrival. And the addition at the stairwell, just doesn't quite do that for you. It's compact, it's cramped, it's difficult to maneuver, it's a pinch point. So looking at how this addition works and creating that new entry with potential for a large parking lot really started to make a lot of sense. Then just coming in again, just looking diagrammatically, the next big thing that we consider is the staff interaction with patrons. So we want to create a scenario where staff in the circulation desk is there and convenient. It's visible from the entryway, but it also has lines of sight through the library. So how do you do that in the historic library as well as the new? So we just started to consider those elements. We then wanted to consider the interaction and the interface between historic and new, because we want to try to save the elevator. The elevator's there, it's operational, it works great. We didn't see a need to tear that out and remove it. The stair, however, it's got to go. The next piece was the need for this large community room and create a scenario where the community room can be closed off from the library so it can be active after hours. So these are all the things that we looked at in many different ways, and we landed at a 2-story addition with an entry off, with the circulation and staff located here, and this main stair, not quite a grand stair, but a primary stair, something that's a little larger than just a fire stair, that brings you up to the upper level. So looking at the floor plans, parking lot out here, new entry vestibule into sort of this ante space with some core restrooms off that, large community room, seats about 100, depending on how you set up tables and chairs. And then that leads right into that entry space where, we'd have what I consider the grab-and-go piece of the library. The new releases, the high turnover, the media, circulation desk, the welcome desk with staff work areas right behind. So all very convenient, and it creates these sight lines between the new and the old. That leads down into the kids zone, which is the whole basement of the current library. So we'd turn part of this at the end into the program room. We'd maintain the existing restroom down there for a family restroom, which is really convenient for anybody who's had little kids. Maintain that lobby circulation space, but as I said, tear out the existing fire stair, which really is inaccessible unless there's a fire. So creating this new circulation area. Am I going too fast? Too slow? Okay. One thing that I failed to note in earlier presentations is under this section of the building, we are planning on a basement. It's strictly a utility basement. It'll have a new sprinkler room. It'll have the electric room. It'll have all that infrastructure piece. It'll have a little bit of storage. It will be accessible from that main stair, but also have an exterior stair for maintenance. So that's something to think about when we get to the size of the addition. Moving upstairs, that stair arrives, again, that elevator lobby landing. And then because the historic building has a really low floor to floor, and modern buildings, we like stuff like HVAC systems with ductwork, and we like lights, and we like higher ceilings. So we created this scenario where there's a second set of stairs up to the new addition and a ramp that goes around the back. So it's fully ADA compliant. It'll be nice, easy circulation. It'll be open. Again, clear sight lines through the historic and then down into the new adult collection. And around, in the center of that ramp, we would put a couple of staff workstations. So we like to have staff spread through the building, not only for convenience to help patrons, but just to make sure stuff isn't going wrong, particularly when we put young adults upstairs. We did create spaces for 3 study rooms of various sizes. So a small study room that would be really great for 3 or 4 people, close tutoring, up to what I consider a large study room that might be 8 or 10 people. In the historic building, we would maintain the history room and really try to bring that back to that history reading room that has the marble plaques, for lack of a better term, on the wall. We'd create, in the old lobby, we'd create a hanging gallery space for sort of a local art, but maybe something that changes quarterly or annually, with obviously books in some of the collection, and then turn the south reading room back into the reading room that we believe it was. So the idea is to take the majority of the collection, not all of it, but the majority of the collection, and get it into the new edition and give the historic piece back to what it was when the building was originally created. In the back area, we would create a larger meeting room. So 3 study rooms and a public meeting room on the upper floor. Moving upstairs, the goal here was to really create a scenario that's not entirely intended for patron use. I mean, patrons could go up there. We did create a large training room, which is currently the trustee meeting room space. But let's get the staff workstations out of there, and let's give the staff some workspace. And then a small 3rd floor just to get the stair up and to create some mechanical storage area. We are saving this portion of the roof for a future solar array. It's not currently part of the plans, but it's for future thinking. All right, so important statistics that everybody asks about. Your existing building, I said 7,500, it's 7,047 gross square feet. The proposed addition with the basement is 10,008, which gives us a completed project of just over 17,800 square feet, which I think for a community your size, it's really in line with what we see other towns have. Exeter is a little over 18,000 square feet. We just finished that renovation that opened, I think it just opened last summer, yeah, 21. Now, what's it gonna look like? So we'll just walk through some views of the existing building. I like to orient people. That's that precious front and this idea of creating this courtyard space, giving it back to the public, the end of the axis. So this was our first concept for what a two-story addition onto the historic building would look like. So 2 stories with the community room down on the lower level, and then the adult collection and seating area up there. So we're trying to create this intimate courtyard space that goes back to the public. We're trying to get large glass windows facing south out onto the courtyard. So it's not only about what the impact is inside the building with that seating area and getting that daylight in, but it's also from the exterior being able to see the activity and what's going on in the library. Originally, libraries of 100 years ago were intended to be very quiet, solitude study spaces. You'd get shushed if you were noisy, you didn't bring food in. It was all about creating that sense of quiet and privacy. Libraries today are more about interacting with the community in a more lively fashion. People bring drinks in. They don't mind if kids run around. Every library is a little bit different, so I don't want to set policy. But again, it's how does a library engage with the community? And now they're much more open and engaging than what they used to be. So we wanted a design that reflected that. We are pulling materials, brick and stone, and proportions of the windows off of the historic without directly imitating it. And that's been a question that we've gotten before, is why don't we want to imitate it? We do a lot of work on historic buildings, and one of the first rules you learn is you don't want to match, you don't want faux historicism. So we want something that's compatible and contextual without matching. View of that courtyard space and those windows on the adult collection. Here we filtered out the trees a little bit so you could see it a little bit better. You can see we're pulling the lines of the roof line off. We're really creating a distinct relationship, but working with materials and proportions to stay in tune with the historic. Now, coming around the north side of the building on that new entry, this is where you really start the context of the addition to the historic starts to change a little bit, because as you come around the north side, you can't see the historic. So we thought that this opened up an opportunity to do something a little different, a little unique in creating a new entry. So this large overhanging piece, which is the young adult collection in those study rooms, creates a protection shelter overhang over the new entry. So it really does create a protected entryway, and a little new signage around the corner really is intended to bring you around to that new entry from the street. The backside on the bank, again, trying to go back to more punched windows. We changed the proportions a little bit. I think as the design evolves, a little more detail in the brick and how we treat that materiality is certainly due. The new entry in, the corner. So this is the view of the lower level, just a sort of the bird's eye view when we pull the roof off. You can see that entry in with the welcome desk into the large community space, and this stair coming up right here. What you can't see but tucked around there is the access into the kids zone on the lower level. Coming upstairs, the stair comes up. You can see those additional stairs and the ramp that wraps around with that staff workspace. Young adult collection up in the corner, study rooms leading down into the adult collection and seating area around the corner. We do have 2 ADA compliant restrooms on each floor, so I thought it's a really nice feature, something the library doesn't quite live up to. And there's a view from, I just forgot what street that was. High Street, thank you. So the next step is, where are we in the process? Right, that's always an important piece. At the completion of this design effort, we put together what we call a schematic set of drawings. We also did work with the library and go through a pretty rigorous selection process, and they engaged a construction manager, so a professional construction manager who would not only help us put together initial budgeting and scheduling, but also be ultimately responsible for building the project. So I like to say that they have skin in the game. They hired Bowen Corporation out of Meredith. It's a company that we work with a lot. They have extensive library experience, as well as building additions on historic buildings. That was really a key piece. So they've been a great building partner. They took our drawings that we put together, which unfortunately I didn't bring with me, but we could certainly make available. Are they online?
They're online.
They are online, okay.
And I think I have a paper copy.
Okay, excellent. So they are available. They took those drawings and they put a budget together. And let's just talk a little bit about the budget, because it's not just about construction. And too many times we work with towns and they hear, oh, it's X number of square feet and it's X numbers of square, cost per square foot, and there's our budget. But the reality is it's working with a construction manager, putting a budget together based on schematic level drawings. We haven't answered all the questions. We haven't done engineering. We haven't selected all the finishes. There's numerous things we haven't done. The budget's all about risk management at this point. And that's why I think construction management is a key piece to the success of our projects, because they have that skin in the game. They know that when they put a number out there and they work with us, they're ultimately going to have to live up to that. If voters approve a pot of money, the first rule is there's no going back for more. We make it work. So we want a budget that we can confidently provide the project that we've presented for the community. So total project budget includes construction costs, so it includes what the number that Bowen put together for us. It also includes furniture, fixtures, equipment, everything it takes to sort of move into the building. This is where we talk with the library about what do you want to save, what can you reuse, what do we need to replace, how much more shelving do we need, all those questions. It includes this weird thing called soft costs, which unfortunately is mostly me and my team. It's design engineering, it's geotechnical, which we've done, it's survey work, it's testing during construction, so hiring a testing agent, hiring a special inspector, utility costs, all these other costs that is inevitably going to come into making the project happen. And then an important piece is the contingency. So in our budget, which is $6.36 million, there is a detailed breakdown that's been provided. No? The CIP budget?
Yeah.
Okay. But in that, we've got construction costs of $289 a square foot, which if anyone's heard what's going on in the construction market, that's a really competitive number, almost concerningly competitive, frankly. But we also have $585,000 in contingency in that budget. So what's important about contingency is it's a renovation, so we want a little bit more money, because when we get into your existing building, you never know what we're going to find, and we want to be able to fix it if we need to. It's also covering all the things that we haven't told Bowen about in the design that we're going to later, right? Those known unknowns, so to speak. So contingency is a really important part of the budget that makes this viable. That was all I had. Any questions? I'm sorry. Parking? Oh, well, let me go back to the site plan. The question is about parking details. We do have parking. I believe we currently have 47 spaces. Thank you very much.
Versus 15 spaces now, 15 or 18?
Yeah. So in this initial concept, we got 40 cars in there. Okay. And now McFarland Johnson is working with us through civil engineering, as well as mechanical, electrical, plumbing, structural. So they're sort of doing it all. We've got 47 cars, and in the parking area, this is your current parking lot, so that goes away. We're creating a one-way in and exit. And the idea here was to maximize the use of the land, minimize paving, maximize car spaces. But also, we wanted to get that exit as far away from this intersection as we could to make it a little bit safer. We're all familiar with that intersection, and it can be challenging. So we thought that creating an in with a drop-off area, ADA spaces, and then loop around to an exit made the most sense in terms of maximizing that parking. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yeah, that's a good question for Diane and Kathy. Now, that's obviously a green area now where you do your book sale. What would you do?
So the book sale would move into the community room.
Okay.
So it would become an indoor book sale.
Okay.
Yeah. There is space, so we did leave a buffer from the edge of that parking to the building, where we do have a walkway coming from the parking area, and a little bit of green space. So there is some outdoor space. We're thinking underneath the cover of that overhang for the young adult area would be bike racks and sort of storage. We want to promote people coming in sort of multiple fashions to the library. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I know it's typical to have community space in a library, but I wonder, did you analyze what other community space is available in Goffstown, for example?
This space.
And, you know, the town hall has some community space, and the school has some community space, et cetera.
I think Diane's coming up because that's a question for her.
Right now, we do use as much community space as possible, hence that's why we're here. However, the schools are not open to us typically when we need them. There's a lot of restrictions involved. Parks and Rec has a space, but yet they're using their space too. So we think about community space, there really isn't any. And that's why we're struggling so much. That's why you saw this summer and last summer during COVID, we're outside almost all summer. Thankfully, we had ARPA grant money to give us the canopies that are out there, but there's no place for us to go. When we did our survey in 2008, one of the biggest comments we received was, where's the space for the community? We need community space. We need meeting space for groups to come in. We need space ourselves for meeting space. For programming space. And the other comment we received that is ranked very high was space for people to sit. Where's the community going to be in this building? And so that this design reflects all that information that we receive from the public.
Just a follow-up, would that be a multiple use area? So would it be used for other things than just community meetings?
Give me an example, like.
Well, I'm thinking it's a big space.
And it can be divided.
Okay.
So there's a divider there. Well, yeah,
Right there.
yeah.
There is a divider, so it can act as two rooms. People say soundproof, but that would be an overstatement. It's fairly sound resistant. We have good luck, you know. It's anyway.
And one thing we don't have the ability right now, we don't have the ability to have a teen program at the same time as a children's program at the same time as an adult program. And that's a huge disadvantage for a library. You know, when we have our younger kids in, it would be great if we could do something for the older kids in the family or the adults in the family. And we don't have that ability right now. And so the spaces that we have give us that ability. And in addition, hold a meeting of the Lions Club or hold a meeting of the Garden Club or something like that. So
AARP tax day.
yes, there you go.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Did that?
Yes.
Okay, you're welcome.
And you know, there's all the little things that you forget when you do these presentations. I apologize. So yes, the community room is dividable, but also there's a pull-down security gate here, so that it could be locked off, and this could be used used after hours. It would have access to restrooms, have access to a little coffee area if there was an event with some refreshments or something. So we try to make it as multifunctional as possible. Anecdotally, what we found in our other library projects is these community spaces are really part of this explosion of use when the project is completed. Most people, they all see circulation increases after the project's done, but most of the attendance comes for these events at the community spaces. So many libraries that we work with lack them. I think he was first.
As a community room, would that be rented or is it available?
We haven't come up with a policy for that yet, because it seems like writing a policy is the cart before the horse. So that will be up to the board whether it'll just be for nonprofit use and community use, or if they will allow groups to come in and charge an admission for something like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example. Because we don't charge anything for our programming at all. So that'll be up to the trustees when we write the policy. It's not something I'm in favor of necessarily, but I'm not the boss, even though I think I'm the boss. So.
The other thing I was thinking is, I'm thinking of several buildings that do have some spaces like Park and Rec, not a lot. Town Hall really doesn't have any space. There's Oddfellows, I believe that's rented, but I see that that's rented. Yes. And also Masonic, which is rented. And once they finish the old grass there, I believe that's going to be available. I don't know how.
Yeah, and parking's an issue there too, though. Yeah. Yes, exactly.
You had a question, ma'am? Don't go away.
As you move forward with this, I'm interested in what you can build in, literally and figuratively, that will be environmentally advantageous. For example, can you do permeable paving in the parking lot? Can you put solar on the roof? What else can you do that will make it a good 21st century?
Sure. Well, at the sort of conceptual level, what we've anticipated in the budget, not the solar array, right? That would be a project otherwise, but we are anticipating a very tight envelope. So our first strategy with any building, you build the exterior envelope really well. You make sure you manage moisture. So what is sort of new, but really has just become basic in how we work, and how we build buildings today. We are anticipating and budgeted for a high efficiency heat pump system. So it's not necessarily what you see on the walls. There's none in this room. I usually get to point to them now. But it's an integrated system that is a building wide. So you can actually do heating and cooling energy transfer within the building. So a lot of those technologies have become very cost effective, very efficient, particularly when you start pairing those with a solar array. So, this idea of net zero ready has really become pretty prominent. I wouldn't say that we've done the analysis that we could say this would be net zero ready, but some of those deep energy efficiency pieces are really important to us and something we look to integrate. The downside with this approach is doing any upgrades of significance in terms of thermal envelope to your historic building is probably not viable. We've done them before. They're very expensive. It would be very cost prohibitive. And you have the unfortunate case of having a really pristine interior inside this historic building. So the idea of tearing it apart to do the upgrades just really doesn't make sense. So I think we'll do a top-notch job on the new building, but the historic piece, I think, is always going to be one of those compromises for the project. So, does that answer your question? Did I go far enough? Parking lot. We haven't really discussed permeable paving in the parking lot. We've done them before. I think it's something that we could investigate. I'd want to talk to McFarland Johnson about that. We do have a stormwater capture and retention system within the parking lot, so we're not draining off onto the street. We are capturing and treating. Whether or not permeable makes that better or worse, I just don't have that answer today. I think you just did talk about that.
Wait, then I'll talk about it.
So, in the original building, especially the basement area and the second floor, the windows are original. The windows are 113 years old, never been replaced, never really been maintained. I hate to say that, but, so the restoration portion of this project will take care of the windows. We haven't decided if they'll be restored yet or replaced. Restoration is very expensive. It depends if we're gonna go for LCHIP money, which would mean we'd have to do that. So, but that's a given, is that the windows something has to happen with the windows for better energy efficiency.
Diane, for a considerable period of months, the present access into the library will be blocked by all the construction of the new foundation.
Yes.
What is the contingency for?
We actually have discussed that, because there were a couple of things. We talked about using the original front and doing a ramp system up to the original front doors, and we didn't really like that idea. And so if you go back to there is a door right in the back that has a little ramp, and that will become the entrance. We'll have to guide people around to that entrance, and then they still have access to the elevator and things like that. So because we will be open during construction, so they'll construct the addition, we'll move into the addition, and then they'll do the restoration of the historic building.
And then staff can always bring stuff out if needed.
Correct. We
Curbside-
still do
curbside
that. We
pickup.
do parking lot pickup. That's a leftover from COVID, and we've maintained that service too. So we'll use a variety of methods to get people what they want. We even deliver to people, so don't spread that too widely.
Tell that to the camera too.
Similar question. The engineering firm doing all the foundation construction needs a lot of stockpile space for trucks and equipment to maneuver, and therefore you're limiting your parking during this period.
Yeah, that's correct. And we don't anticipate it'll be worse than it is now, because it's pretty bad right now. But yes, that's true. That's true. There has to be space, and that's one of the reasons we didn't go for a phased approach, putting the parking lot in first, because they need to use that space that will then be destroyed by, yeah.
Yeah, so you bring up a good point, and we have thought about it. If I
Yes,
could
we
just
have.
get into one more level of detail. So, working with Bowen and the engineers, what we've currently talked about is building the parking lot really as first step in the project, and creating this as a two-way access point temporarily during construction. So all of this parking would be available for parking for the library during construction. And that leaves this entrance and this section to be the lay-down space, sort of the materials, dumpsters, trailers, all that stuff. Also, without, at the risk of getting in the weeds here, there is major utilities running through here, and actually we have to move a couple of utility lines that currently go right under the building, under the parking lot where the building's gonna go. And we're creating a generator transformer access up here. So there'll be major utility runs underneath this section of parking lot. So it just made sense to take this whole area at once. What that means as a compromise is after you park here to go to the library, you either have to walk around through the parking lot to get to that door, or you have to come out and go around the building this way. It's not ideal, but in terms of making the project work and still keeping the library open, we thought that it was the best compromise we could make.
And it's not feasible for us to move services elsewhere. There's no place in the community that we can just move the collection and everything, and it's not really efficient, so.
You wouldn't want any traffic going through the bank parking lot, foot traffic. They would all have to basically go down
come out and around.
Some of it being, what about for ADA compliance?
Yeah, we talked about that too. There's a sidewalk behind the library, right there. So we talked about a walkway from the parking area there. That was one of the first things we talked about as a team, is accessibility.
Yeah.
It's very important for everyone that the building is accessible even during the project, so.
When do you anticipate this going before the town?
We are anticipating a bond vote in March of 2023. Correct. We're ready, everything's ready to go. We've been to CIP, we've been to the select board, we will be at budget committee. And if that passes, then groundbreaking would be spring 2024.
Yeah.
Now, since it's a bond, it requires 60%,
It requires 3/5.
60%.
I don't know. I asked and that's the answer I received, so that is what I am going to be telling everyone.
Yeah,
3/5.
60%.
I thought it was testing you, that's all.
Well, you know, Brad, it's,
Sorry.
What is there, a plan to raise private funds along with this, and how much of it?
Kathy might want to come up and answer that, but yes, the trustees formed a foundation called the Goffstown Public Library Foundation that they are ready to go as far as they have all their legal paperwork done. They will be doing a capital campaign, and the fundraising consultant that they're working with, they did a feasibility study for funding, and they found out that they could raise $750,000 max with a capital campaign. So that's the goal as far as the capital campaign. We are investigating grants, the possibility of grants. We just met last week about that. So we'll do as much as possible to offset that those bond payments. So.
So there,
No, that's right.
so you go for the full bond, the 6.3
Yes,
million, or whatever it is,
yes.
and then the private funding would offset the bond cost?
Yes, they would be, the monies raised would be paying the cost, the payment, the annual payment, until it runs out. So, yeah. Yes. Okay.
And what has been the reception from the selectmen and the budget committee?
We had a great meeting with CIP. CIP was Brad is on CIP. We made a presentation there, and that went very well. So we felt positive, I think, after that. We met with the select board, I should say, I was there, the trustees met with the select board. It was not as positive. I think we have some concerns about the cost. I don't even mean some, I mean that there's someone on the board who's very concerned about the cost, and we are too. Obviously, we're trying to do everything we can to mitigate that, but the cost is the cost. There's just nothing. So we'll see. They're going to have to, there's a lot that we have to do before then. We have to have a public hearing. The select board has to agree to put our warrant article on the ballot. They have the ability to say, no, we're not putting it on there. So that means we have another plan in place. So there's a lot. And it's a political dialogue too, so.
So we need your support.
So we need your support.
Come on, make the pitch. You had another question?
Diane, how many volumes in the collection right now and in the showing schematics, how many
Ooh.
volumes are you going to be able to have?
We have about 33,000 items, physical items in the
Okay.
collection right now, and it's been maintained that way. That's all we can fit in our building. What did we measure?
It varied a little depending on the department, but it equals out around 25% growth.
Growth.
Growth,
Okay,
yeah,
thank
yeah.
you.
It's, the children's was a little bit higher, because, children's,
Smaller, skinnier books.
yeah, it wasn't equal amongst all the collection, but overall, it was about 25%. We also like to plan for shelving to be lower too. So the side effect of that is you have inherent ability to go even, you could add another, 5 stacks could become 6. We don't like to plan on things like that. We like to have the space, but we know that additions in community buildings are really challenging. So doing another one, right? So there's inherent growth in addition to the 25%.
Oh, Don.
Is there a plan for an EV charging station in the parking lot?
Excellent question. We talked about that. That's something we're definitely going to explore. So yes. So that's phase, like after the construction, we'll talk about that and solar. Then the next project would be the solar array for the roof.
Wish list items. Wish list, yes.
And are you gonna have, inside the building, where there's seating, will there be charging for people's laptops and so on?
Yes, yeah, we have a standalone charging station now on the second floor because that's all we can really fit. And but yeah, we'll look at all kinds of options for that. That's something our current building can't meet those needs. Our electrical system is 113 years old, so we have there are some issues like in the history room where if we put too many things, if we plug too many things in, the circuit pop. So we've learned what we can plug in and what we can't plug in. So those issues we just can't fix until we get an addition. So yeah.
So there be a spot for like automatic checkout so that you don't have to do the going through the receptionist at the library, put a staff post down and
We have that now. We do have a self-check. Yes, we do. Right next to the circulation desk. So across from the elevator. So we do have that now. It's not a touch screen. It's not fancy, but it works great. So yeah, and we may even add more once we have an addition. We've squeezed it into a very small space. So
Yeah, so we had 2 located.
Yeah.
One right here and one over by the elevator. And I think we might have put one upstairs. Yeah, right there.
yeah.
But some of us like talking to real people.
And since I have been shushed, I like to talk too. So
You're doing great.
It might be worth getting some specifications for the solar array, because
Yes.
it seems to me that could be a really big sort of selling point for this, especially with the new law that's just gone into effect, that they provide some pretty good funding for that.
Yes. Yeah, and that's actually already been asked.
Yeah.
We just haven't gotten there yet.
yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Any other questions? I think we're done.
Okay.
Best of luck.
Did you have any closing remarks?
I don't, you actually both covered it all.
Sorry to steal your thunder.
If you'd like a tour of the library, I have my business card. I'll give you my card. Just let me know and I'll take you on a very entertaining guided tour of 3 floors.
And just as a reminder, if anyone has questions after you leave today, as you're thinking about what you've seen, you can always email the library trustees, Goffstown, trustees@goffstownlibrary.com, and there's a link right through the library website as well. So that's there. Please take a look at take a closer look at the design. We're here with our name tags.
And there's a couple handouts if you didn't receive them, which kind of gives you an overview of what we've done to date. And then it gives you that all-important square footage chart so you can see where our library fits with other libraries of the same size in other communities, and that is a very telling document right there, so. All right, thank you very much for attending.
I just wanted to, I'm Kathy Coughlin, the chair. Hi, I'm Kathy Coughlin. I'm vice chair of the library. I'm actually chair of the foundation. I just wanted to mention that real quick. It is a 501c3, and we are working with the same fundraising group that did our feasibility study. And so we are in the background of working on the initial of the capital campaign. But speaking as a resident of Goffstown, I just wanted to basically say that this is an investment into our community. Our library is an awesome library. We do awesome services, but we could do so much more. And we're definitely looking for that community support. And any questions, like Amy said, just reach out to us. We'd be happy to talk about anything. Thank you.